Hello, Calling Up Justice community. This is Claudia Alec with some really annoying news. Stay tuned. I have a longish story for us to talk about, and it ends with a big business move. So did y'all hear about Basecamp? It's a problem. So the Calling Up Justice practice, and this is for those who aren't part of the practice but are also watching this video because you know I'm publishing this publicly. The Calling Up Justice practice is a transmedia social justice practice, producing performances of justice online, on stage, and in real life. Practically, this means we're doing accessibility design. We're creating digital spaces for performances of justice making. So sometimes those are digital spaces for facilitation or arts producing, but they're always informed by the goal of creating a culture of calling up, a culture where we can all acknowledge what's not working and collectively work to, make it work better for all of us. Since this isn't working, white supremacy doesn't work. Can we talk about it? All right, so for those who are part of the Calling Up Justice practice or collaborate with us, you will know that in 2018, we decided to base all of our projects in Basecamp. I'm an early adopter. I used Basecamp years ago. I'd done my research to make sure it felt like like we weren't investing in an evil tech company. And it's $100 a month, but that feels fine for the kinds of digital space needs that we have. And cut to 3 years later, international relationships and data and so much work in there. We like our Basecamp. And everyone who works with me, they know that I'm like, did you put in the Basecamp? It's in the Basecamp, Basecamp, Basecamp. On my words, all the time, Basecamp. So why am I complaining? 2 minutes into this video, why am I complaining about Basecamp? Well, on Monday, the CEO of Basecamp apparently published a public announcement that also was really about company policy and his direct staff, but apparently decided to tell the whole world and also the staff at the same time. I saw this tweet from my colleague, Kim Creighton, and it said, "This is the final thing I have to say about at Basecamp. For all y'all who fell for the warm and fuzzy narrative that its leadership spoon-fed y'all in their books and blog posts, I hope that you finally see that it's easy to be one of the good guys when you're the default. Shit starts to get real complicated and uncomfortable when everything about your inherent greatness, power, and privilege gets challenged by those who've always had to work 10 times harder than you to get 10% of your success. But y'all believe this because it made you feel good." I read 2 of their books as an assignment because one of my clients who thought that these dudes hung the moon, and just like today's posts, they're just enough, oh, that makes sense, for many of you to ignore the glaring red flags that I continually had to point out. So moving forward, I hope y'all spend more time questioning and demanding observable inclusive behavior before you bow down at the feet of yet another mediocre, unremarkable white dude in tech. Now, I just gotten onto Twitter. I'd been on Twitter early in the morning, but then I got busy. I had a meeting with this amazing black magician who's also a social media consultant, and I also had I did a gigantic anti-capitalist transmedia training session producing in pandemic where we had racial justice performers presenting their work, and we had indigenous people presenting their work. It was amazing. And then, we did a lot of things that day, right? I did 3 accessibility meetings, one for the incredible disabled residency, Recoding Cryptech. I should put links to that below. Anyway, I get done with my full business day where I use that Basecamp a lot and saw this email exchange. So I replied, "I've been busy making social justice happen. What the heck is going on?" Thank you very much to William. Is your name William? What's your name, sweetie? It's gonna take me a second to get there, huh? It's annoying. So I replied, "I've been working on a social justice project. What I missed, what should I be researching? Read Basecamp." Wesley Faulkner, thank you, Wesley Faulkner, went bloop and gave me a link to the blog post that, what's your name, sweetie? The blog post that Jason Fried posted. Fried? Pride? I don't know, but this is what was posted. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 paragraphs of text to kind of give the context of individuals are individuals, and everyone is an individual, but also a company is a collective, and has to think about stuff. But like, there's a gigantic quote from Huxley from The Doors of Perception. It feels really hardcore. It ends with, by its very nature, every embodied spirit is doomed to suffer and enjoy in solitude. So, I mean, I guess that's meant to make sure that we understand that the only collective is the company and what the company wants. The individuals inside the company should not be trying to make tiny collectives because they're all individuals. I'm not sure what the point of all that text was about. Several points were made. 1, no more societal and political discussions on our company Basecamp account. He had to do some extra text on this later because, like, the next day, I was reading all about why this particular policy was put into place. And so there's a little link to why this was put into place. But basically, they don't want anyone talking about politics because, you know, sensitivities are at 11. And you shouldn't have to wonder if you're if staying out of it means you're complicit or wading into it means you're a target. That's right. You don't want to feel like your silence is complicitly. So you need to make sure everyone is silenced. They feel like, you know, it's a major distraction. I mean, not in the world. Like, it's not that the world is making it harder to do what you're doing. It's not the racism that's the distraction. It's the, you know, trying to deal with it inside the workplace. It saps their energy and it redirects their dialogue towards dark places. Like talking about things that are unpleasant. You don't want to do that. It's not healthy. It hasn't served them well. Like, they failed to do this well, so they don't think it should be done at all, right? And, you know, people can take conversations with willing coworkers to Signal or WhatsApp, or even a personal Basecamp account, but you're not allowed to talk about politics in the official workplace, digital workplace, which I just think is fascinating. Because what does politics mean? What do you mean by politics? Now, of course, the updated blog post that says what they meant by politics is basically somebody got called out for like doing, like for 10 years, they apparently had this list that some of them thought was very funny that had usernames on it that they thought were funny, like non-Western usernames. It's super white supremacy culture. It's bad. It's not good, right? And instead of, you know, taking the L, figuring out how to like shift their culture so like horrible stuff like that doesn't happen, they did this. Number 2, no more paternalistic benefits. For years, they've offered a fitness benefit, a wellness account, a farmer's market share, continuing education allowances. And while they felt like it was nice to do, they feel like it's actually nudging people's personal individual choices. You're individuals! So, you know, go be individuals out there. Because, you know, do whatever you want, like privately, without company involvement or judgment. This is about the company, not like we're no longer going to be giving you anything. Like, you don't get any extra. Like, maybe your life is more unhealthy because you work here, but that's on you. You made your life choices. It's an individual choice. Number 3, no more committees. What I love is that the way that this was framed, it's just framed so badly. Okay. No more committees. For nearly all of their 21-year existence, they were proudly committee-free. They usually didn't have committees. And they think that big working groups making big decisions or formalized the recommendations, it's groupthink, it's bureaucracy. And recently a few committees sprung up. They sprung up like weeds. And no longer, they're turning things back to the they're going to turn it back to the people, the individuals who are distinctly hired to make those decisions. So the responsibility of diversity, equity, and inclusion work returns to Andrea, the head of People Ops. And the responsibility for negotiating use restrictions, moral quandaries, you know, it'll be Jason and David. Like, Jason, David, and Andrea are going to handle anything that has to do with people feeling like racism's happening, sexism, these 3 individuals will do it all. And the 21 people, there's only 60 people at the company, so the third of the company that was like, we'd like to get together and maybe find a way to shift our culture so that we're less problematic and awful to work at. Apparently, they don't want that to happen. Back to basics. Back to individual responsibility. Back to work. No more dwelling on past decisions or lingering on past decisions. That's right. If something happened in the past, it was what needed to happen, and that's fine. We're never going to go back. Like, for instance, that 10-year history of that horrible list of names. In today's world, like, we wouldn't go back and linger or dwell on that past decision. We just live with it. It's like, that's what it is. Like, rehashing decisions, it can derail a project, right? Okay. But only needed a quick fix, right? If it only needed a quick fix, you don't want to put too much energy into it. Just, like, let it work. And no more 360 reviews. Like, no employee feedback to the manager. We're not going to do 360s. We're not going to be a place, like, we tried it. We tried doing 360 reviews. We failed to do it well, which indicates we're a really unhealthy workplace. But instead of, like, becoming a healthy workplace that can actually handle 360 reviews, we're just not going to do them anymore. And also 6, no forgetting what we do here. We make project management, team communication, email software. We're not a social impact company. They just write business books and blog a ton and speak regularly and have open source software and do their thing. But, you know, they're not a social impact company. Therefore, there is no internal mandate for their employees to help make sure racism doesn't happen internally at their organization. Like, they're not a social impact company. So, like, if you bring up the fact that something their company is doing might be having a negative social impact, well, that's not their business. They're not a social impact company. Like, their business isn't the social impact they have. That's not their business. Their business is being a project management software that I apparently can ethically no longer use. Because what this entire document is literally the opposite of what my company practice is about. It is call-down culture. Aggressive call-down culture. Foolish call-down culture. So the second this happens, I immediately, well, actually, that's not true. Because I find out about this at the end of my workday. So I take the evening. But the first thing on Tuesday, I let the staff know, hey, guess what? We're going to have to move our entire practice. I'm going to have to come up with some magic money to hire a magic person who's none of you people to do that project. I'm not happy about me losing money doing that, but ethically, we can't give $100 to Basecamp. But here's the even worse problem. I can see the writing on the wall Monday evening. I'm like, oh, you're a very bad CEO. Unless you're trying to do a thing where you're, like, destroying your company on purpose and you have, like, some, like, tricksy, like investment things you're doing. But, like, this, yeah, I'm thinking that it's just mostly you being very bad at your job, and a bunch of people are going to leave because they won't want to work there. Like, I wouldn't want to work there. That's bananas. That's disgusting. But also, it's just stupid. Like, this is stupid policy. This is the policy that guarantees a toxic workplace. This is the policy, the unspoken, unwritten policy that most institutions ran on. And it's only in, like, the last decade that we've slowly started to have institutions start to do, like, healthier practices, like being like, hey, maybe if we get perspectives from all the people in the company to build this policy, it will be more effective than if we have these people with this narrow perspective build a policy that's supposed to impact everyone. Committees are actually not a bad thing, actually. Okay, so the news, I'm making this on 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon, and all I see on Twitter all day today is people quitting Basecamp. So I've given the company 3 months to do our move, and that's because that's the time it's going to take. If I could move our stuff this week, I would. I've already done the call to the community to have recommendations made for better platforms that might, although here's my problem, I'm going to talk to Kim, because I did my research. These weren't Trump voters. This is something that's a little more complicated and a little more insidious. I will end here with the tweet that summed this all up for me really swiftly. Brandy Settles, BR Settles, tweeted this, and it was just such a good breakdown. Happy Clevelander living in D.C., helping individuals reach their leadership potential. ObsidianRebel.com. Oh, okay. All right, founder of Lady Leaders. I'm going to follow you. So Brandy says, so a staffer held a leader accountable, and the response was a policy designed to silence anyone who challenges how power is accumulated and utilized in the company. Respect and accountability are suddenly political when the status quo is questioned. And calling up justice community. We always know that this is about power and performances of power. I'm just bummed out because I liked it. All right, I gotta go, y'all. I gotta get to another meeting. Glad I could get this in real quick. We're moving platforms. And we might be doing another module on why it's actually really good that you have that diversity, equity, and inclusion work group, even when it feels like it's not doing what it needs to do fast enough. Okay, calling up justice community. Please, I should do a call to action. So my call to action is if you're not like me, living within this really sweet spot, communications, sweet spot of tech people and being friends with arts people, if you're not in that, I want to recommend that you tell all your friends, because I don't know if people have heard this story yet. I mean, I'm sure they have, actually. I'm sure that if I Google this, all the news outlets are having it, because I'm assuming this is national news for people who care about tech things. So my call to action for you is to let your friends know whether or not they need to move their data and choose a different platform that has more stability. Because ultimately the lesson we've learned is that white supremacy, call down culture, it creates the optics of peace, but it actually creates the conditions of precarity, chaos, toxicity, and something that's not stable. Like, there's a reason why I didn't want to have my company based in a place where this might go down. I'm mad about it. I need to call Kim. All right, y'all. Calling up justice community. You know, maybe support us on Patreon if you want. I'm terrible at these calls to action. You know what? Here's my real call to action. Go fight racism.